Welcome to Progressive Mindset Podcast. My name is Natalie Potts, business coach and mentor, and each week I'll bring an inspiring personal message to help you unlock creating and living life full of energy, action, impact and happiness. And today I'm really excited to be welcoming on Adam. Adam is my coach for life. He helps his clients change the way they see the world and supports them in unlocking their true potential. We discuss an array of coaching areas from challenges, obstacles, limitations, confidence. You are really gonna love this rich conversation. Enjoy. Adam, thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited, as I've just shared with you, to be joined with you today and going through exactly what you do, coaching and loads, hopefully. So share with us, who is Adam? What does he do? How does he get into coaching?
Fabulous. Okay, so background in the nuclear industry. Some 20 years ago, found myself working on a nuclear power station up in the northwest. I was operational for 10 years, always in supply chain. So whether that be inventory, logistics, services, etc. And then for the latter 10 years, more of a strategic UK-based role. During that latter 10 years, I was really, really fortunate enough to experience a number of leadership and managerial courses, one of which was quite heavily based on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which I know you'll be more than familiar with, and I'm sure some of the listeners are as well. And I was just fascinated, like, why do we not all know this?
Yeah.
This topic is, our way of understanding ourselves. And then more importantly for me at the time, it was, well, if I can understand myself better, I've probably got a better opportunity to understand how other people are showing up in the world and how I can help them. So just became obsessed with personal development. From that moment on, I kind of latched on to one of the facilitators on one of the courses. So I've done a 3-week residential, and one of the facilitators was an exec coach. Not really heard much about coaching. And Steve, who I still know to this day, I do work with Steve now. He just put his arm around me basically, and I was just asking him what to read, what to watch. Fast forward 10 years, and I left my corporate role just over 2 years ago, qualified with the Coaching Academy, did my personal performance diploma with the Coaching Academy, and set up my business, which is My Coach for Life. And yeah, I've had a wonderful 2 years, albeit even though we've had the pandemic, my business actually grew through that time. So whistle-stop tour. I live up in the northwest. I've got 2 boys, Miles, who is 5, Ruben, who has just turned 9. Married to Hayley, wonderful wife, who operates and owns 3 ultrasound pregnancy scanning clinics. That's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of me and how I got into coaching.
Yeah, I love what you share about how you kind of that feeling you get, and how do we not know this? And I find now, the longer I get and stay in coaching, that you kind of create this bubble around you of lots of coaches or people that are entrepreneurs and have their own businesses, and you forget that still that's the case actually for a lot of businesses, and a lot of people don't understand what coaching is, or they say they do, and then you'll say, well, what does it mean to you? Because I never like to say it in a way that, well, do you know what coaching is? Because some people are like that, and it's like, well, you don't think it isn't. But often people don't. They just think it's telling and teaching and maybe, a blend of, shoving the mentoring, when actually it isn't. And like you say, it's about, always about others. And that's always what I say when I mentor coaches, that it's always your client's agenda. It's not about you. Remember that and get that self-awareness part. That first of all, and then second, just the absolute obsessiveness I had as well when coaching came into my life, and I found my Coaching Academy and then personal development, and I just absolutely loved it. Couldn't put books down, and to this day I can't. I just think it completely opened up my world and changed everything. And I think I don't have the greatest in life, but I wish it had come about sooner in my life. When I was a lot younger, it would have made such a difference to decisions I made, and probably where I am now.
Yeah, I agree. And I had assumed, like most people, that it was just CEOs, CFOs, sort of really high level people in the world who had these things called exec coaches.
Yeah.
And then actually the more I explored it, I was like, oh, wow, there's regular people just like me in an organization. I was fairly senior in the organization, but from a personal development perspective, there are just for want of a better term, regular people who've got coaches to help them maneuver this thing that we call life, because it's more than ever. We've got more opportunity, but comes more frustration, more distraction, and to have somebody to lean on and support you and give you a space. I think that's probably the bit when I invested in my first coach, was it was the regular space that I didn't know I needed until I had it. That I was like, wow, we don't generally stop and take time for ourselves. And when we do, all of a sudden, we start to reflect, start to see some patterns, maybe some behaviors, and maybe that actually we're just on this treadmill of expectations. And for me, it was when I started in the nuclear industry, I've got a job for life now. That's it. Made it. I don't ever need to leave that industry. And when I explored that, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. That was gifted to me by my parents. And they've not done a bad job. I love my mum and dad to bits. But that was their view of the world, is, wow, you're sorted now, Adam. You've got a job for life. You don't need to worry about anything. You have a pretty good standard of living, go on a couple of holidays a year, drive a fairly nice car, and that's it. You're sorted.
Yeah.
And now I look and I'm like, I didn't decide that.
Yeah. And
it was wonderful. I had a great standard of living, but I didn't consciously choose that. And that's the bit where I'm like, working with clients, sometimes you can help them see things that they've never seen before, and then start to really reflect and think about if that's the direction they want to carry on going in, great. Or actually, I might want to consider some other ways of turning up and showing up in the world, and what I want to do versus what I think I should be doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've got this big thing about reflection at the minute, because I'm very, like you say, I can be on that rat race and just go. I guess I'm one of those people that I love to do more, therefore I just add to my pad just because I love everything, but it's just too much. I spread myself thin, and then I'm, it's like, oh, there's just not enough hours in a day that I want for good things. It's not a bad thing at all, but there definitely is such a power in taking time to reflect on where you're at and look at how things are. And I think this, when clients come, when they're interested, they jump on the call. See, I'm a big, just making sure the rapport's there, that we can work together, because I can't actually work with everybody. Not everyone will want to work with me, and that's fine. And there's always a big thing about, like, how much is it? What's the return? And it's like, well, why can't you go into something a bit more just with curiosity? Actually, the power of coaching is that we're going to just really simplify everything down to probably a few actions, because actually then you will take action, opposed to the millions of things you've got on your pad, which you probably have just rolled over for the last 3 weeks every single day, if you was talk me through them. And, like, just thinking about, this is your time. This is your time when you come to coach with, for your session. It's just your time to reflect and have some downtime, and just, very meditative state, from the point that you're thinking about that moment, be in the moment, and just think about a few things, not everything, and prioritizing. And I think when you start to, like you say, shift that for people, that's when the power starts kicking in terms of what they get from coaching. And actually, as strange as it sounds, those few things moving forward so much more than everything else they're compounding onto them.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. So if you give you, when I was leaving the corporate world, so it's taken me 20 years to get to a fairly senior level. So I'd worked hard to go from an operational role, work my way up, gain my professional qualification on the way, then do my coaching qualification on the way. It was a massive, the fear that sat behind me leaving, thinking, well, yeah, if I get this wrong and I go into this thing called coaching, where am I going to get my clients from? Where are these people that, like you say, the first question, how much do you charge? And it's like, let's just slow the conversation down first, and let's see if we're right for each other, see if coaching is the right vehicle. Is coaching the right vehicle? Am I the right coach? But the fear that sat in me, and what I didn't realize was, until I started working with my coach. So I employed a coach. I worked with a coach 3 months before I left and 3 months after. So I signed a 6-month contract with him. And because there was an awful lot of fear there about, what if I get this wrong? What I'd not realized was, actually, I've got a 20-year career in the nuclear industry. If it did go horribly wrong, I've got that to lean back on.
Yeah.
I'm an asset. There's not many people who work in the nuclear industry in the big grand scheme of things. And there's lots of work going on in the nuclear industry, but I hadn't clocked that myself. And the listeners might be going, well, that seems like a really simple thing to kind of realize. But oftentimes that's what the coach helps you with, seeing things that you can't see yourself.
Yeah.
And once that shifted for me, I was like, okay. It was like the goggles had come off, and it was just like, right, move forward, and at quite a fast pace where things started to happen. But then just understanding myself a little bit better and learning from that, and just having that moment of insight was like, wow, yeah, actually, I've got an awful lot to lean back on if I need to. And also then the flip side of that is, well, what happens when it goes really, really well? Because I've not thought about that.
Yeah.
Because it was, where are the clients coming from? How much money am I going to make? How much do I need to get me to a point where I was earning a similar amount of money than I was? So it was all based on not going well versus, well, what happens when it does? So again, just working through that and having that spotlight shine on, well, let's also think about the other side of that conversation.
Yeah.
Which was incredibly powerful.
I heard the quote today, actually, and it was Tony Robbins: start just focusing on what can go right.
Yeah. And
it is just that. And I always say it's going to be my hashtag one day, I think, on my strapline, is notice what you notice. But it's true. And for me, I say that because I'm always like, for me, I'd notice what's going on in my life, and I take those moments. I think that's I've got to take meaning from that. That's coming at me for a reason. I do genuinely trust that with things.
Yeah.
And like looking at the great side of the law of attraction. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. And I find just stuff like this and getting into conversations with people who get it, the stuff, as they say, or whatever, but just that people that are positive mindset, that are driven, that, want to make a change and really commit and work hard. And I think that's always thing, people, there's this entitlement out there at the minute for wanting everything overnight and wanting things because of money is their success, ratio. And I think you've got to really strip it back and always go back to, exactly like I say, you can call it a bit geeky, but it is true, go back to your why on things, genuinely, that passion and why you started it. And I think that, like you just alluded to there, that you've got to trust yourself. And that's hard.
Very, very hard, especially when you've, dependent upon what your background and your upbringing is and all that kind of good stuff, or if, like, trusting yourself in an organization is very different from trusting yourself when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
So there's policies and processes and HR and finance and all those other things that are part of being employed. When you decide to go and do that by yourself, you are by yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to have faith and trust in yourself that what you're doing, you're capable of doing and you can do it. And that it's not for the faint-hearted, because there are times when things don't go the way you expect them to, and you're just by yourself. You're like, and listeners, as if they can see me now, I'm looking around my office, but yeah, there's not very many people stood with you. Generally, it's your loved ones, the people that care for you. Whereas if things don't necessarily go to plan when you're in an organization, you've got that sort of organization to help you and keep you moving forward. So yeah, there is a tremendous amount of trust in yourself and belief that's required, but the benefits and that come along with that, when things go in the right direction, are just incredible, absolutely incredible. I wouldn't change my life for anything, and I wouldn't change the fact of having 20 years in a large corporate organization, because that has facilitated my ability to do what I do now. Yeah,
sure, completely. How do you get over those times when it is tough like that? What is the bit that I mentioned a bit about the why there?
Yeah.
What is it that keeps you aligned to, be on track? And how do you keep that focus, drive and energy when it's going well?
I think there's probably two things. One, all the cliches under the sun are cliches for a reason. So, all the, grit, determination, when you get knocked down, keep moving forward. In the moment, you're like, that is absolute I was just about to swear, I'm not going to. And when you get through them, you go, oh, yeah. So I kind of look at some of those things sometimes and go, yeah, there's an awful lot of wise people who've come up with those statements that we all look up to every now and again. And like I say, some of the quotes that seem to be quite popular on social media, when you actually lean into them, you're kind of like, yeah, there is absolute merit in those. And they've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of people. There's an awful lot of wisdom out there that
Yeah.
rings true, that you, like you said earlier, Natalie, you've got to believe that those things are there, and that they're cyclical. They've been there and they just keep being very, very present, regardless of whether it's been there for 50 years, 100 years, 200 years. There's some great wisdom out there that I truly believe has stood the test of time. And it doesn't matter what point that you're at.
Yeah.
Those things still stand still today. And then I think the other thing is, having been submersed in personal development for nearly, well, probably going on 15 years now, and being someone like yourself that's incredibly well read, it takes practice.
Yeah.
I do. I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and that by the time we get into our mid-30s, we're basically a set of walking habits, not just from a behavioral perspective, but a thought perspective. So when you say, how do you keep moving forward? It's practice. You've got to, for me personally, I meditate every day. I'm aware of what I'm thinking. Like everybody, I do get caught up. I do get on autopilot. I do sometimes get caught up in the moment. However, I think once you can realize that they're just thoughts and you've got an amount of control over them, and you can start practicing that, then all of a sudden the game changes slightly, because you can start to challenge your own thinking. And where has that thinking come from? What's the narrative that you're telling yourself on a regular basis? And those two things, I think, for me, are what helped me when I'm kind of looking around going, this feels really difficult, or things are not going the way I would like them to. Those years of recognizing that, understanding that there's something that can come out of it, that can help me, that will teach me something. That's how. And I think, there's an awful lot going around at the moment, is, failure is not a bad thing and you can always learn something from it. You have to be in that mindset of, I can genuinely learn something from this, not just tell myself I can, because I keep seeing it on social media and all these lovely uplifting inspirational videos. You really do need to sit with it and say, what is it that I can gain from this? So I'll give you an example. I just said to you earlier, about a flood in one of our buildings today at one of the clinics. So we've got that sorted. Somebody's been there, sorted it out. Fantastic. And then you say, okay, so what can I learn from that? Well, I've got another 2 buildings. And this might sound really counterintuitive, but we've never had a flood in the building. So we've never had to know where the stop tap is for the water going into our buildings.
Yeah.
You go, straight out to the managers, find out from the landlords of those buildings where the stop taps are, just in case you ever need to turn the water off.
Yeah.
There you go. And it might seem like, that's a really simple thing. Why have you never done that before? Well, we've never had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So long-winded answer is, I think I do lean into the wisdom that has been around for quite a while. And then the second is actually practicing what I generally preach.
Yeah, and you're right about the part of this autopilot and habits, and I've noticed that myself recently. There's some things I do, I just don't even think about them, and they're not good habits. I need to curb them and I need to change them, and the only way I can do that is by having the self-awareness to know this isn't serving me. But with the reflection, like you say, if you can't take the time out to reflect and look at what's going great out there, what's not serving me, and how do I change it, you're not going to change. You're just not.
Yeah.
Continue in that autopilot, and you can rewire that, and that's obviously like we're talking about, NLP, neuroscience and stuff. But you have to be aware of, I guess, also like with the coaching, where you want that to be, and what it means to you at this moment. And yeah, there's so much within that. It's really interesting, and I think I'm really big on gratitude, but that's taken me 3 years to get to a point where I feel that it's ingrained. It's more than just, people say, what are you grateful for? I'm not big on affirmations. I probably need to face into it more, and I would be, because I know people believe in it and see these things, but I just really find it hard to get into. I am this, I'm that. I just struggle. But I find gratitude, I started working on a few years ago, and I was saying the same things every day, and I was like, oh, this isn't what I want. This isn't how it should be. It's just, they're nice things, but it doesn't feel, it just feels a bit pink and fluffy.
Yeah.
And then I started, I think that probably the turning point was when I started volunteering for Shout, the charity, like Samaritans for mental health. And I started, I just did 2 hours a week. And then I started thinking about, well, where else in my life can I give back? What else can I do? And when you start, like you say, getting a mindset of that in that a different place and what you want to do, and really focus in on it, and almost have a goal within that, then that's when it starts to change and ingrain, and then that becomes almost a behavior of gratitude for me now. Like, you naturally get up and do the meditation, but you do have to practice it. It isn't just overnight, and I think that's, it's like the cliche, isn't it, that if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. But it's bloody true, because people don't do stuff, or they'll do it for a period of time, and they're just not consistent. They don't show up every day. I'm a big believer in, even if it was like a silly little post, the fact that I show up every single day consistently, and I pop up in someone's world, has an impact.
Yeah, I think what we forget as humans, because we don't really know much about ourselves, we get, and I'm certainly not trying to say our education system isn't ideal, and it's got some gaps. I think the world over the past 16 months has shown that we can educate in a very different way. However, there's a piece there for me that as human beings, we don't really know much about ourselves, and therefore when we do try and introduce something new, especially now where everything's instant, we forget it took us X amount of years to create those thought patterns and those habits. So when we want to create a new one, or we want to stop an old one of the questions is to kind of think is, well, how long have I been behaving this way? How long have I been that version of me, and that specific behavior that you might want to change or you might want to introduce? Because I've been doing that for, like, I've just turned 40. I've been doing a lot of things for nearly 40 years. So if I then want to introduce or stop doing something, I've got to think, this might take me a little bit longer than X amount of time. And I do think we forget sometimes, when we do want to change who we are, what we're doing, we've practiced a certain way of things for a very long time, and we don't realize that sometimes. So, and because we may perceive that we didn't have to put any work into some of those behaviors, that we should just get things pretty quickly. I'm a huge fan of marginal gains, and just 1%. If we just start doing 1% every day, which most people say, I can do 1% better every day. I can do something better every day. And like you said, I think it's the focus. There is so much going on in people's worlds. They do end up with so many distractions and so many things to work on, and then sometimes can beat themselves up that they've not done what they wanted to. And in actual fact, it's not that they've failed. It's just perhaps they've been trying to do too much. And I know you and I both know, when you're talking about goals and you're saying to people, how many have you got? And they bring this list out, and you're like, okay, let's just slow down the conversation.
I remember once I was having a performance review about 4 years ago with my line manager at the time, and he was a regional manager, and we did this review, and he goes, oh, how have you got on? And I was like, I haven't achieved half of them. And he was like, what does that tell you? And I was like, well, I just did too bloody many, didn't I? I literally sat there, and I probably achieved 2 out of the 10. It was like a, holy shit, I'm going to get my arse whipped to like massive because I haven't delivered. And I just overestimated what I could do, achieve, where I wanted to be, and actually it felt I was comfortable with that to a degree because I was aware of it, and I was like, right, I'm going to be honest. But I look back and think that was just a poor lack of judgment, and just trying to do too much. And yeah, I changed things from there, and I don't do the same now. And even like you say, I do my year goals and things. I only have 5. Like, and looking for like the next, and that includes like the next 5 and 10 years as well, and that's it. They're pretty bold, big, audacious and everything, but I'll have obviously milestones within that because that's what works for me, you see. But it can be, I can imagine if I hadn't have been that way in terms of I do really need changes, I need you to help me, and all the growth mindset stuff, that I would have probably been bloody scared in that place, and a lot of people would be. And I'm very confident with things, so I go, yeah, you're right, I have messed up. That's poor of me, but not everybody can do that easily. And that was a relationship we had, granted, as well, that I felt I could do that. And when it's not a relationship like that, then you're not certainly going to act that way for sure. But it can be quite scary. And then so like that's in a corporate space. If you think about doing it in your own world, and actually you don't have people to fall back on, you don't have that time grace the same way sometimes in your own business at all. It's really interesting. I did a commitment last year, actually. I had this little bit of a moment in lockdown where I was like, holy shit, supposing this doesn't work out in my life, supposing this doesn't work out, what else am I going to do? And I signed up to another course and stuff, and I was talking to my best friend about it yesterday because I was like, I don't know whether to stop it. I've invested over £1,000 in it, which isn't the be all and end all, but it's enough for me to do for this course. And I said to her, I was like, I just don't know. I said, I feel like, can I quit? Quitting it, do I need, am I making a point to myself that I feel good because I'm quitting something, which seems silly? But I want to do it. I enjoy doing it when I do it. It's all the moment stuff. I do procrastinate about it. And I was like, I've just added too much to my pad. And I was like, a year ago, I was in that place. I needed that. Am I in that place now? And I was like, I just don't know what to do. It's really hard. I thought it's good intentions. But it's not serving me now. It's impacting me too much now because it's impacting other things. And that's why I always say nothing's solo. That's why I work with people in relationships, business, and and life on a whole, because you can't just say, oh, my relationship's falling into pot and it's not going to impact at work, or work's crap, therefore it's not going to be something I leave it at the door when I walk in. It just doesn't happen, does it?
No, not at all. And it's that, I think the work that we do is exactly what you've just explained. There's so much complexity in the world and so much for us to choose. We've got, it's regardless of what's just happened, and I'm, whether some of the listeners will agree or disagree with this, but for where we're sat now and the people that we probably work with and probably most of the people that we know, and I know there's been loss over the last 16 months and it's obviously sad, but there has never been a better time to be a human being in the species of our history.
Yeah.
There's so much on offer to us. And in some respects, that's almost breaking people, because there's so much opportunity, so many choices, so many things that we can do. And it's like more, like you said, I've got more to do now. And well, it was great at the time, but now it's like, well, what do I do with that? Because if I finish, am I a failure? Do I quit? What's that internal? What's your ego telling you? Yeah. Clearly there's a story there that's, well, I don't quit. And
that's the thing. That's that. And I don't.
There you go. Yeah.
I go back to why did I start it? And I was like, I started it because I wanted this, and that hasn't changed. Therefore, I think is there enough in it for me? And do I just accept the fact that I've now got to pay extra as well because I've blown the bloody time frame of it, which has annoyed me? But I just think it's really hard. I think what I've learned is I wouldn't do that. I know I can make decisions quite quickly. I abruptly made that decision probably. Yeah. Although I looked for about a month, to be fair, but I just like you say, there's always a learning from something, and maybe it's just one that I have messed up, or I don't know, maybe it's just not right for me now. And I just,
do you know what's coming to mind, Natalie? Have you ever read and the listeners, have you ever read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss?
I haven't done that one yet, no.
Oh, so like for the listeners, just grab it, even if you're not considering doing a 4-hour work week, but just grab it. It's a great read. But he talks about in there just coming to terms with just not finishing stuff. If it's not serving you anymore, just kind of go, it's not serving me anymore. I just leave it and get used to it. Be like, start being comfortable with having things unfinished.
I've never done that.
Exactly. So your habit, your behavior, your brain pattern says, I do not do that.
Yeah,
in actual fact, so what if you don't? Like, where else could you take that energy that you're using to think about, should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Should I not? So you're consuming energy, you're consuming thoughts, probably not doing the thing either one way or another. And that's what I loved about that. It was like, we are ingrained with, we should finish things. We shouldn't leave things half done, dependent upon, again, what your background, what your parents have in school. We don't finish, half finish an essay. We don't do half a spelling test. We don't do half of this or leave it unfinished. So then when it's sat in front of us as an adult, we go, I can't do that. That would be really weird.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, what could you use that time for? And it could be serving more people, volunteering more.
That's the thing I know. But then you've also got, and this is where, people think, they look at you and go, oh, you're this, you're so successful, life's amazing for you. And you think, yeah, okay. And because in my mind, I'm doing exactly what I work with people on, because that's just, like you said, this human part in us, that I'm just sitting there then going, well, why did I make a decision? And it is adding to the pressures. But then I start to think about, well, what will people say now that I've stopped that? When they know that I committed that, they'll be saying, well, why did you invest that amount of money? What a waste of money. You don't give up. I've got all of that in my head as well. So, and I know better than, I know for myself that I have to push all that aside. And I know that actually doesn't bother me. I hear it, but I'll go, yeah, whatever. It's my decision. But yeah, that becomes the obstacle in itself.
Yeah, that thought, that thinking pattern that you've got.
Yeah.
It's so well ingrained in there and in us all.
Yeah.
That whether it's behavior like that, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's eating well, and all that kind of stuff that comes with it, it's really, I love it. I love helping my clients to recognize their narrative, their dialogue, how long they've had it, where does it come from? Is it their voice? Or is it somebody else's voice that is in there? And sometimes people say, "Oh no, I can clearly hear, great Auntie Jane or Uncle Bob or whoever," and you go, and even that moment from it's, oh, hang on, that's not even my thinking. I've been listening to that for years, and now I know it's not me.
But this is where it'd be great talking to you, because even just like, and this is where we know the power of coaching. Even just it's me talking, it sounds like, it's a light bulb moment and stuff. And yes, but you should know that it's all simple, but it's not, because I'm not in that place. I'm in that place where I've compounded everything onto that one direction, that one path, and everything about, like, it's like it's all fog, isn't it? And you just get in one place. And I think that if I was to reflect back, what I would justify that decision now, if I do choose to stop, by saying I did X, Y, and Z at the time, and if that situation came up again, I'd know to say, pause, stop. That didn't work last time. Why is it going to work this time?
Yeah.
But also, when I reflect back on, like you talk about limiting beliefs and things, I always did very well in the corporate space I was in when I was 18. I joined like you, I joined thinking one career type thing, even though I'd done uni and been told you'll have an array of different careers in your lifetime. I joined somewhere that I was like, I could be here when I'm 45, 60, 55, 60. This could be set for me. And everything I did, I progressed really freaking quickly. And when you progress like that, it's great. But then when something comes and it's like, actually, there was probably only one role where it took me a couple of occasions to really be successful and get that role. But I just kept going for it again. And, to the point where they're like, you just get, this is your last chance going for it. And then you'll be on the bench for 6 months. I was like, that's fine, I'm going for it. Just when you then again, you can't, I guess I haven't really had anything I could say, yeah, I failed at that, or I didn't get what I wanted. I haven't such. And that's hard then, because it's when you do your own business, it's inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've worked with a number of coaches to help them grow their businesses, and the challenge in there is being okay with receiving no's and rejection and no, you're too expensive, not right now, you know, all these things that come, and that's the bit of our industry and the world that we're in that can put an awful lot of people off. I think there's some wonderful coaches out there that haven't been able to get their head around the kind of mindset it takes to be able to stay in a sustainable business that is giving them a certain standard of living that they're looking for. But the challenge that comes with that is the rejection and being told no, and having to go out and find your own work.
Yeah.
Now, when you're employed, you just turn up every day, and for all intents and purposes, at the beginning of the year, your boss or your manager kind of says, right, this is what we want you to work on for the next 12 months. So you go, right, yo, thank you. Slightly different to you. I have failed. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. I was a travel agent. I've worked at McDonald's, cash and carry. I started on a 6-month temporary contract in the nuclear industry, not just happy being in the stores. That's where I started, driving forklift trucks, moving parcels and boxes. And then a number of doors opened, and my thought process was, well, I think somebody went off on long-term sick, Natalie, and they said, oh, do you want to be a buyer? And I thought, worst that could happen, I'd do it, and I can't do it, and I'll go back to opening boxes and driving forklift trucks. It's not that bad.
Yeah. And
then I got the opportunity to do my professional qualification, which scared the life out of me because I left school with pretty much next to nothing. It wasn't particularly academic. And even that, I have to pick myself up and say I wasn't particularly academic. What I've realized over time is one of my limiting stories, narratives, was my brother and sister both went to university and I didn't. And the story that I was telling myself was, I'm not academic. And in actual fact, I did 17 3-hour exams to get my professional qualification, 2 of which I failed. So I had to redo. So I should have done 15. I did 17. So I failed 2 of those. And then just kept, every time a door opened, I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I could just go back to doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I think that, again, that failure piece for an awful lot of people, if you're listening, another wonderful book, Black Box Thinking, which just an amazing book on failure. It's wicked.
I've just got this one next.
You'll love that. Bounce.
I listened to him on he was on Stephen Bartlett's podcast recently, and he was talking all about success, and even he said, I can't give you a definition of what success is. And I was like, oh my gosh. Phenomenal guy, phenomenal.
Yeah.
His mind thinks very differently.
So where your expectation was going into the corporate of, I'm just going to succeed and I'm going to keep on going. I kind of class myself as just like a regular guy who I've just worked my way up the ladder and fortunately found personal development, submersed myself in it. I didn't even used to read books, and yet now I read every day without fail and have done for years. And I don't know whether some of it's just the maturity piece, Natalie. I don't know, but there was something around that time when I was introduced to that NLP and the material about, hang on a minute, I've got some choices that I didn't realize I even had. And when I figured that out, it was like, okay, so I'm gonna have to work at this. I am gonna have to put myself in some difficult situations, but not difficult, but things that scared me. And as I've done more and more and more of that, the results and the rewards have got bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point now where, I've got a nice lifestyle. I do have to go out and create my own work, but that a lot now is coming from referrals. So people working with me, and then I get a phone call to say, oh, such a body's told me it'd be worthwhile having a conversation with you. But that has taken, like, again, one of the cliches, it looks like an overnight thing. No, it's taken, if you count my corporate career and all the things, my qualifications and things that have come with it, like probably 25 years to get to a point where I am. And that's the bit, I think, like you said earlier, people don't realize how long and what you have to do to get there. And it's available to everyone. It's just what you're willing to put in. And that's the bit I think that's sometimes missing, is if you're willing to do the work, and it can be fun. It doesn't have to be overly stressful. You know, of course, there are moments in my life that are stressful, but it can be really, really, really great fun. And you can have a great time. You can meet some wonderful people like you and I. We've just connected, and now we're having a great conversation about, you know, how people can improve their lives and their mindset and what they're doing with themselves. And it's wonderful if you can get into that way of thinking.
Yeah, and I said that to someone the other day because they said they're really struggling at work. Everyone's negative. It's putting them down. Like I said, you've got to connect with people that are not that way. You've got to just let it go and cut the strings because it's not serving you. And I said, and it will be hard. Some will be easier than others. I said, and you'll feel it's weird and that you get lots of judgment, etc. So, but you've got to make that decision because that is, again, your environment and everything, those connections that you've got, they either serve you or they don't.
Yeah.
And you have to make that decision.
And there are so many communities of people out there now who are creating positive spaces. Yeah. And again, I'm not like bullshit bingo. Oh, be really positive. Well, again, cliche, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. So if most of the people you are around are bitching, moaning, you know, everything's going wrong, nothing's ever going right, it's hard not to take that energy.
Yeah.
Again, I'm talking like I'm preaching. No, it's taken me a while to figure out that I've got loved ones that I have to choose at certain times to be around. Yeah. Not because they're bad people, but just because their outlook on life is different to mine, and that's okay. But now I know that I can be more deliberate about the time I spend with them and prepare myself for what I know, the same story, the same thing that's going to come out, and just be okay with that. Yeah. Whereas a few years ago, I'd be getting like, for God's sake, you just stop talking about that and do something about it if you're annoyed with it or you're pissed off about it. Now I'm just like, that's just their habitual thought patterns. That's just the way they are now wired.
You are spot on there that you know, you do have to learn to know, like, it's understanding yourself, how you are, and how to get the best out of others, and just think, I'll let that go.
Yeah.
You can't cut everyone off. You do have to manage yourself within that. And that's the power within you, I think, with that. Share with me a little bit just around your podcast and the focus around confidence as well, because this is really
interesting. So I'm not sure whether we call it co-host or host. We've got 2 hosts for the podcast. I was thinking about this earlier today, knowing we had this conversation. I was like, well, co-host is almost like co-pilot, but we don't. So Kerry and I, Kerry's another wonderful coach, former GB athlete. We host the 2 Coach Confidence podcast. And that is all about this very, very subjective topic that we refer to as confidence. And we were put together. Somebody who we knew said, I think you 2 need to meet and have a chat with each other. So we met over, it must have been just before the pandemic started, because we actually met in person. Imagine that. And we just started talking together, and Kerry had the idea. She wanted a podcast, but she felt like she wanted a male's perspective on it. And we just started talking about the work that we do, and pretty much every client that we work with at some point in time has mentioned or has talked about a lack of confidence or needing more confidence to do whatever it is they were looking to do. So we thought, well, actually, it's quite interesting that what is it? Where does it come from? How do you get more of it? What if it wasn't even a thing? Like, we've defined it as confidence, but everybody's definition of it is different. So we're not measuring apples for apples. So we just thought it'd be really great to have a podcast all about confidence. Yeah. And there was born the 2 Coach Confidence podcast. We've had international DJs, models, the CEO of the fastest growing female network on the planet, their CEO, Royal Marine Commando, who's been in multiple war zones, etc., etc. And all of them, what was really beautiful around all the conversations that we've held is each and every one has said, I have struggled with confidence at some point in my life.
Yeah.
And what they've done to develop that, to grow that, tools, techniques, books, blogs, and just that theme across the conversations, that if you can pick up that you're using language like, I've never been a confident person, I'm just not confident.
Yeah.
That's the little alarm bells to any listeners out there who are going, that sounds like me. Then there's something in there that when some of my clients come to me and say, I'm just not a confident person, I'm like, okay, so talk to me about what you've done to develop your confidence.
Yeah.
and it's like tumbleweed. So you're telling me it's important, you're telling me you've been like this for a long time, but you've not done anything about it. And it's kind of like, oh, that's really uncomfortable. But again, it's that narrative that they've told themselves that for so long, it's just become the truth.
Yeah.
That's that narrative of, I'm just not confident, I'm just not confident, I've never been confident, I've never been confident, never been confident. That's who they've become. And then when we start to look at how to develop it, first, let's define it, what it means for that individual. So talk to me, what would you be doing? How would you know you've got the confidence that you think you want? And when you get into those sort of really juicy questions, and people sit there and it's like, oh, right, yeah, well, how would I know I've got all the confidence I want? Is it all the time? Is it in a specific situation? Can I turn it on and turn it off when I want? And that's when the work starts. So we've had a wonderful time over the last 16 months just having these conversations about confidence. And it's been pretty self-indulgent, Natalie, I guess, like yourself with a podcast. Part of the great thing about having a podcast is get to meet loads of great people and have really great conversations that you learn a lot from. So I've learned so much about confidence in the last 16 months. It's unbelievable, which then just translates into helping my clients. It's great.
It is. And that goes back to your point exactly about the fact you have to practice things. You have to just be doing it. And I was listening to Simon Sinek, and the new book Infinite Greatness, or Infinite something, is phenomenal. But he was talking about the book, and he was sharing about confidence, and he was sharing about the fact that he feels a lot of confidence is people believing in you, and then that's just stuck with me. And I remember working with someone recently, a leader, and they just said, I'm just not confident, and everybody's better than me, etc. And I just said, yeah, but look, I believe in you, just be more confident. And then I walked away and I was like, it's really easy for me to say that, really easy, because I am confident, etc. But I went back to her and I was like, do you know what? I said, like, we need to just break that down more as well. Really look at how do you change that. And I said, I've shared that with you, believe part. I said, because when I thought back of the times when I was most confident in my life, it was when often somebody was there, probably either behind me that I knew and trusted, or they were there going, come on, you can do this, or they believed in me with that step that I was uncertain on, fearing or something. So that's, I just thought it was really interesting to think about. Sometimes it's somebody just maybe saying to you, I believe in you. And I think what's interesting from that is that when I'm telling people more of those, that go out there and empower people more. You can inspire confidence in others and yourself by just empowering people, and being that catalyst in their life at that moment they needed you. Really can give that burst of confidence, opposed to sometimes thinking, it's just, I just thought it was a completely different perspective, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and I think what we wanted to do was break this kind of stereotype of people that are successful, people that have got incredible jobs. One of my favorite episodes was with an international DJ Spooner. She's DJ'd in front of 800,000 people at the Burning Man Festival.
Yeah.
800,000 people at arguably the world's craziest, maddest festival. And yet every single day she wakes up doubting herself.
Yeah.
And that conversation of what she does, the morning ritual she's created to turn up in the world so that she manages her internal dialogue and the way she shows up, but that she talks about, it's taken practice, it's taken effort and energy to do that. And had she not done that, you put her in front of a set of decks all day long, she's great. Outside of that, she struggled with all sorts of different things. And it was that we thought was really important, was let's get some people who do some pretty incredible things, and some, like, just people like Kerry and I, we talk about confidence for us, and just show that it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at some point in time, confidence has impacted our lives.
Yeah.
And that's what's been really, really great about the whole, we've got like a body of work now all about confidence, which is wonderful. And starting to think about, well, actually, where are the opportunities to help people with it? And it's likely in that sort of transition into becoming a young adult, through our teenage years, what's going on at high school. So we're in a position now where we're like, actually, what can we do with that body of work to help people, young adults, go off into the world and actually take a moment to say, right, I kind of have this thing about confidence, but I've got an opportunity to define it and develop it before I go off into adulthood, and it then become this thing that I believe to be true for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Going on that then, and I always round off with a few key questions at the end. What would you tell your younger self?
Sorry, Natalie, can you just repeat the question?
What would you tell your younger self?
Everything's going to be all right.
Okay.
I think part of my dialogue for trying things was failure. And again, I think because my narrative was about not being very academic, meant that I couldn't potentially have the life that I have got. And if I tried and I failed, then it's like, oh God, that's it. I'm just stuck where I am. And yet now, doesn't matter what comes up, it'll be all right. Everything will be all right in the end.
How do you measure success? I
think that's, for me, it's how it's internal. It's a bit like happiness. And I think success for me is the ultimate, for me, is being able to choose what you want to do in life versus what you have to do.
Yeah.
So now I have the opportunity. I'm incredibly blessed and fortunate through work. Hayley and I have worked incredibly hard and put a lot of effort and energy, financial effort, etc. But my lifestyle, I get to choose. And that for me is success. When I don't have to do something, I do it because I want to do it. And I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. You know, to the listeners out there, I'm not like, absolutely loaded. However, I am in a really great position where I choose more often than not. Of course, there are times when I have to do things like pick the kids up from school and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But for me, I've created a lifestyle where I am incredibly fortunate as a father to drop the kids off, to pick them up. That for me is success. I'm not confined by the constraints of an organization or the constraints that the world out there thinks I should be doing. So that for me is success. It's the ability to choose instead of having to do something.
Good for you. And last one then, going on the fact you love your books as well. Which book has had the biggest impact on you?
So my oh God, I'm looking at my bookshelf now.
That's like what I do.
Can I have 3?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think the reason I want a few is 2 of them I'm going to class as one, so I'm going to give you 4. My work is transitioning more and more into supporting people manage their time, and I have a really deep seated belief that, along with things like confidence, and again the cliche, time is our most precious asset, but we're never taught how to use it.
Yeah.
We're not taught how to use our most precious asset. What? Where does a lot of the pressure, the stress, the frustration, the negativity, anger, how, you'll know this, Natalie, you're still in that world. I just haven't got time. I haven't got round to it. There's not enough hours in the day. I'm back-to-back meetings, blah, blah, blah. So my work is transitioning into supporting that community of people transform their relationship with time. Because again, it's that thing, when you stop and slow down, actually, I can start to support clients understand what they can do with their time. So the 2 books I would say, they're Essentialism.
Yeah, I've got that to read.
Oh,
yeah, I've heard that one.
Amazing. The One Thing. So they're my 2 that I've
read it twice and I've listened to it twice on Audible. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good.
That's where I'm kind of got the flexibility to take my work, because I'm just so passionate that I really feel for people who are feeling stressed and broken and overwhelmed and burnt out because they don't know how to manage their time and their relationship with it. Yeah. So those 2 are just amazing. I think from a understanding myself perspective and my thoughts, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, absolutely amazing. I highly recommend that to anyone. And then I think, hard choice, it would either be Black Box Thinking or Mindset by Carol Dweck. I think Mindset by Carol Dweck is a must read for every human being, because the terminology growth versus fixed mindset is being bandied around like a fashion statement at the moment. And I really don't think people understand the depth of research that Carol Dweck has done and what it really means when we're talking about a growth and fixed mindset. And as a father of 2 youngsters, I found that book an absolute game changer for the way in which I praise my children and the way in which I interact with them to help them have a growth versus a fixed mindset.
There's another one off of that, actually, the Silent Guides by Stephen Peters, who does the Mind Paradox. Yeah, have you read it?
No, I'll put that on my list.
But that around more limiting beliefs, and again, the way we think, I think, from working with children, and is phenomenal, and I think really powerful. And I look at the relationship I have with my niece to think of how I praise her for things and everything you do. And often, because we know as adults, like you say, we get to certain ages and we're ingrained, we're habitual, and that really made me think about, if I'd have changed so many things or been more aware or had different perspective when I was younger, I'd be very different now.
I think the black box thinking, I say, because it's all about failure. And when we're going through our formative years and we talk about failure as this thing that's not great, and we're given exams to do and we're giving tests, and poor Ruben, bless him, he's just, the last couple of weeks he's been assessed to death. And like, I just think our relationship, and again, our definition of failure, that piece of work is just phenomenal. It's helped the aviation industry tremendously, the medical industry. And I just think as a human being, to go, hang on a minute, I've got this thing about failure, and actually it doesn't need to be a thing. It's that changing thought process again. So sorry, I've given you way too many books.
I love it. Look, Adam, I'm absolutely engrossed in the conversation. I think that I love your perspective and how your manner and how you put everything across. Really genuine, and it's a great, rich conversation. It's always my favourite word, a rich conversation.
Love it.
But look, I genuinely am so grateful for your time. Where can people find you and connect?
So I'm a bit. I have a love-hate relationship with where can people find me. I genuinely mean. So I'm on LinkedIn. I don't do much on the socials. I much prefer that if someone genuinely wants to reach out and have a conversation with me, then do it. Because I'd love to have a conversation with one of your listeners that goes, I listen to Natalie's podcast and I'd love to talk to you. I'm on LinkedIn. My website is www.mycoachforlife.com. Again, not a great deal on there, Natalie, because I prefer to have a real conversation with a real human being, and that's for me is the main thing. So I'm on LinkedIn, I've got a Facebook page, but again, not particularly active, and my website. And don't forget, the Two Coach Confidence podcast, that's available on all the major podcast platforms. Just search Two Coach Confidence and we'll pop up. And if you're thinking about ones to listen to, or what would I say? I'd say the one with Spooner. We've got a Buddhist monk on. He was absolutely amazing. And Cherish, who's a mum who has been featured in a number of high-profile magazines. She's grown this amazing clothing line called Popsy Clothing, and she shared some great insights. I mean, they're all great episodes, but those 3 are particular favourites.
Thank you. It's brilliant. Thank you for your time.
No problem at all. Great to be asked. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to my podcast today. I really hope you've taken some value. If you would like to focus on achieving your purpose-driven goals, then reach out and share with me one thing that's going great for you right now and one thing that you're really struggling with. Let's see if or how I can help you to leverage your business to make more money, make an impact, and have more freedom. As always, go take action, make an impact, and have a great day.